I'm starting on the right track by turning my phone off. And I just got an email that I need to double check on. Ms. Legalista here, aka Attorney Sheila. We have been following the Ruby Franke and Jody Hillenbrand case. You know, Jody used to have the channel 6 passengers. I'm sorry, 8 passengers. She has 6 children, and then it was Jody and her husband, Kevin. All of that has been shut down, and she started, I guess, this coaching business with Judy Hillenbrand, or it started appearing with Judy Hillenbrand. But I want to go to the site. They talk a lot about deception, and I keep wondering, is this the tactic that you plan to use against these charges that you're facing? Let's go to her Instagram account because I kind of want to go through this whole idea that they have around deception, which to me it almost comes across as another scheme. Like people come up with some sort of title so they can sell you on whatever idea or service or product it is that they have, and this just sounds like another thing. Let me click on this so I can make sure that we can watch this together and sort of break this down, because I keep wondering, is this going to be your tactic when you go to court? And it says here, what is a tactic of deception? Tactics of deception are flavors of denial. I engage when running away from reality. How about it's just denial? It doesn't have to be distortion and deception and all of that. It's just denial. It's just denial. All right, let's see what they're saying here.
A series around tactics of deception. In order for you to see truth, you're going to need to know the opposition. Anytime you go into battle, you need to know the enemy. And distortion is the enemy of truth. And so we're
Okay, so wait a second. Distortion is the enemy of truth. Now, normally the way we think about it is we think, okay, either something's true or it's not. It's true or it's a lie, or we've taken something and we've interpreted in a way that it's not consistent with the truth. But I want to hear more about what they're saying.
we're living in a world right now that largely believes truth is this subjective, ethereal idea, like what's true for me, and you can have what your truth and my truth, and it's all different.
Very
And
subjective, very based on how I feel.
yeah, it moves, it's fluid, it changes. There's very uh, a lack of base.
Go kick a rock and see how fluid that is.
I know. That's fluid. Well, it didn't hurt me. I don't know why it hurt you. I'm sitting here jabbing. There is truth and there is reality, and there's one truth. There's one reality.
So
All of us
I,
are living in.
I think what they're talking about, it's not that, okay, so there, let's acknowledge there are some people out there who are creating their own sort of truths. But I think what they are creating, what they are equating truth to is a person's lived experience. So my lived experience is going to be different from someone else's lived experience. And so I'm going to interpret things differently. I may see things differently. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm wrong. And I'm not sure why they are equating feelings with truth either. You feel what you feel, or either you don't. I, I'm wondering how this is going to play out in court with these charges, because what they're saying actually sounds very fluid, and I don't know.
The reality. And if that's uncomfortable for you, you will either sit in the pain and acknowledge and validate that this is painful. This reality is it is breaking my heart. It is not. I don't like this. I want something and I don't get to have it. And okay, and you're surrendered to the reality, or you're going to go running away. And no one wants to go running away a coward, and so they create a story as they run away that justifies why they're running away from reality. And all of those reasons, all of those stories for running away are tactics of deception. We have been
I
doing.
think they're just tactics of denial. People don't want to face things. It's hard, it's challenging. And again, I think they've just created this idea of tactics of deception as a way of promoting what they're selling, which is the coaching business, or listen to us, watch us. We have ways to help you. Again, it makes me wonder how she is going to use what she is actually talking about in terms of her own case. Because if she would follow, and I haven't gotten through this yet, but if she were to follow what her whole delivery here is about, which is running away from the truth, is deception, it's a distortion. You're making up stories to tell yourself, then isn't that what she'd be doing if she just didn't say, hey, they're charging me. I'm not going to run away from this. I'm not going to deceive myself by telling myself stories about what did and didn't happen here. These are the charges. Here are the facts. My child left out through a window. My child showed up at someone else's house. The other person had seen sores, saw sores and duct tape wrapped around my child's ankles. This other person had to provide water and food to my child. So those are facts. And I'm wondering, if you're preaching not to run away from the facts, from the truth, then I would think that you would then just plead guilty to some of this. But let's hear more.
A series around tactics of deception. In order for you to
And
see
I'm sorry,
truth,
it
you're going
started
to
back
need to
over.
know the
I don't think I
opposition.
can make it go forward.
Anytime you go into battle, you need to know the enemy. And distortion is the enemy of truth. And so we're living in a world right now that largely believes truth is this subjective, ethereal idea, like what's true for me, and you can have what your truth and my truth, and it's all different.
That's just
Very
called
And
lived
subjective, very
experience.
based on how I feel.
yeah, it moves, it's fluid, it changes. There's very uh, a lack of base.
Go
It's
kick a rock and see how fluid that is.
I know that's fluid. Well, it didn't hurt me. I don't know why it hurt you. I'm sitting here jabbing. There is truth and there is reality, and there's one truth. There's one reality. All of us are living in the reality. And if that's uncomfortable for you, you will either sit in the pain and acknowledge and validate that this is painful. This reality it is breaking my
And
heart.
people do
It
have
is
trouble with that.
not, I don't like this. I want something and I don't get to have it. And okay. And you're surrendered to the reality, or you're going to go running away. And no one wants to go running away a coward. And so they create.
So again, this piece where she, and now just want to touch on this part where she's talking about running away as a coward. So again, how is she going to apply this to her own circumstance? And I'm just sort of talking through this because we've already seen this part.
Deception. In order for you to see truth, you're going to need to know the opposition. Anytime you go into battle, you need to know the enemy. And distortion is the enemy of truth. And so we're living in a world right now that largely believes truth is this subjective, ethereal idea.
All right. So yeah, so we've sort of been through that. Let me see. I don't want to talk too much about the comments that are here because I have an idea of what a lot of them say. Um, but again, let's see when this was
We have been
actually
doing a
posted. So
series.
this was posted 22 weeks ago. Um, so since then, a lot of things have changed. But like I said, to what extent is she going to use this in her own legal challenge, the legal charges, the six charges that both she and both she and Jody are facing? That could be, it's Ruby and Jody, so it's Judy. You all got that, right? All right, let's click on another one where they're talking about this compartmentalization.
So let's break down compartmentalization. It's I'm in reality and then I compartmentalize. Like here's reality over here and I make my own little section here and I make my section here. Like I'm teaching about smoking and then I go out and smoke. Here's my section. You see it? And when someone in my class walks out to go to their car, they see me smoking. I'm like,
yeah, you're isolating, you're sectioning. Think of like an orange inside of an orange, all these little slices. It's like, here's part of my life over here and here's part of my life. And I like it that way because I can manipulate this section over here and then I can come over and manipulate over here. So a lot of people will compartmentalize at work.
So again, how does this work when she's trying to provide a legal defense for what she is saying happened? Because she's talking about compartmentalization, and to some extent, that is exactly what she was doing. She was talking about, being a good parent. And yeah, there were plenty of times where she sounded like she knew that people were questioning the parenting style and the discipline tactics that she was using for her children. But in this case, it sounds like even she has some compartmentalization going on, because it's like, well, I'm going to do this with my kids, but even though I know I may have some issues with it too. Like, she wasn't even totally on board with everything that she was doing. It's like she knew deep down that some of it was probably not right, but she compartmentalized it to make it be okay.
And they show up one way at work and then they come home and they show up in aggressive, a different way. They're not, smiling like they were with their coworkers.
Okay, nobody. So let me just stop here. By the time you get home, I don't know that this is a really good example for them to talk about, because you are going to be different people in different spaces and around different people. When you are in your home environment, you are usually a little bit more laid back. It's an environment where you feel safe. If you're talking to family members, you will talk to them differently than you talk to your colleagues. It's not necessarily a bad thing to make sure that you're speaking to the audience and taking into account who that audience is.
And schmoozing, now they're just yelling and ornery with everybody. You suppress what you don't want, and then you bring into focus what you do want.
so let's break down compartmentalization. It's I'm in reality and then I compartmentalize. Like here's reality over here and I make my own little section here and I make my section here. Like I'm teaching about smoking and then I go out.
So yeah, and I get what they're saying. I totally get what they're saying. What they're really talking about is a person who's preaching one thing and doing another. Okay. We have all heard that for years. This is nothing new. But again, how do you put this together with the whole fact of the deception and the distortion and the truth, when she talks about, well, you are living in distortion if you're not accepting the truth and reality. And so she's facing these 6 charges. And how is she now going to compartmentalize herself out of it if the law is saying, hey, it looks like what you did amounted to these 6 charges? How do you then stand up and say, well, I'm going to compartmentalize that out and say that was just, strong parenting? And we haven't heard from her yet. And this is why I'm asking these sorts of questions. What is this going to look like for her? All right, let's see what else they're talking about here. So far we've got a few of these concepts that they're talking about. They're talking about deception, distortion, compartmentalization, and now we
What
have
is
compliance.
compliance? It seems rather innocuous. Compliance shows up as fairly passive. It conforms and it's a concession. It says, not overtly, I'm going to do what you want. However, I'm going to keep my real agenda of what I really want behind the scenes so that you can't see it. If someone says, wow, was that movie amazing? And I think it was like, I don't say, no, I didn't think it was amazing. I just go, yeah, it was amazing. That is
Well, in that case, actually, that's just called lying in the example that she gave. Up here at the top, she says, compliance is my way of appearing responsible without being honest about my thoughts, agendas, desires, and or perceptions. Compliance is deceptive because I offer a distorted version of myself instead of my authentic, genuine, and sincere self. All right. And there you go with that. And I think this is probably one of the ones that makes a little bit more sense. I don't know that I'd call it compliance because in some cases, compliance could just be going along, period. Like you're just going along. You don't necessarily have any underlying agenda with it. I'm just going to comply. But let's see what else they've got. I think that was the end of that one. I could click back.
What is compliance? It seems rather innocuous. Compliance shows up as fairly passive. It conforms and it's a concession. It says, not overtly, I'm going to do what you want.
Whoops. Sorry.
However, I'm going to keep my real agenda, what I really want, behind the scenes so that you can't see it. If someone says, wow, wasn't that movie amazing? And I think it was like, I don't say, no, I didn't think it was amazing. I just go, yeah, it was amazing. I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed this other part.
So you're being super dishonest.
Very dishonest. Compliance is dishonesty. Compliance is distortion. It doesn't matter how happy your compliance is. I put happy in quotes because it's dishonest. You can't be lying to someone and then claim that you're in truth. And happiness is aligned with truth. What is
So let me stop there and talk about how this relates to the legal proceedings that she is facing. So in that case, that, that to me would sound like that she would not then plead guilty if she truly, truly believes that she did nothing wrong. And so to some extent, I'm trying to bring these two together in terms of how do you bring what you're teaching and apply it to the very circumstances that you're talking about. So yes, if she complies and just goes along with a plea agreement or, were to plead guilty, even though she didn't feel that way, then by her definition here, she would not be following her truthful self and what she truly believes. She would be engaging in lies, distortion, and deception. And so going back to the initial part about deception being, remember what she talked about, truth, the reality. But the reality is you have these charges out here. Remember, I went through it. The reality is your son had to come out a window. The reality is he appeared to be, malnourished and emaciated and thirsty and having duct tape around his ankles and sores. And so those are the realities. So if those are the realities and you accept those, however, on the other side, you say that you don't just want to comply because you believe that you were right in doing those things that were the facts. I'm not even sure how you put all of this together. How do you make those two work with a legal argument? And the only reason I'm saying that is because she is the one who's saying that you're supposed to do these things. So if you live in truth, then you would plead guilty, right? Because those were the facts. That's living in truth. That's not living in distortion and deception. You would say, yes, I did these things wrong. I am not in denial. Here are the facts. So I'm going to plead guilty. But if she really truly believes that it wasn't wrong, then she would be engaging in compliance if she then, said, I'm going to plead guilty to these facts. Do you see why I'm having a hard time using what she's preaching? These are not concepts that I came up with. I am applying what she is talking about on this Instagram account with Moms of Truth, her and Jody. I'm applying these very concepts and they're not meshing. So maybe you can watch this and explain to me how you think these would be applied in a real world setting, such as the 6 charges that she and Jody are now facing. I'm not seeing how she can use these in her life right now and apply them and not have them. I mean, right now, just those two alone, and I haven't even finished going through the full Instagram account about other I don't know, these other things that they mentioned too. All right, so that's compliance. Let's see, we've got blaming. So then they've got a series here: tactics of deception, avoidance, black and white, blaming. And I haven't watched these, but avoidance. I mean, we can get through some of these, but let's go. Here's the intro. So and this may be more of what we've already heard, but let me just click on it so we can see.
The tactics of deception. When you go into battle, you want to know what the tactic of the person on the opposition is. And so that is what we're going to do. We are literally opening up the book of tactics for the deceiver. So this is lying, this is manipulating, this is all of the distortions. You hear Jody and I talk often about principles of truth. These are the principles of distortion.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was just enjoying that.
And Jody, take it away. She's mesmerized by what I'm saying.
Like, that's cool.
She's avoiding right now.
I was just enjoying, actually. I'm like, that was a good introduction.
Well, thank you. The tactics of.
Okay, so that's the intro. I guess we got something out of that. So then we have avoidance. Let's look at this one on avoidance.
And today we are starting with our very first video around tactics of deception. Now, the reason I would want to use a tactic of deception is to avoid discomfort. I'm running away from something, mainly my fear. I want to cover my fear because I'm so uncomfortable around it. Mm-hmm. And we humans don't like to feel uncomfortable. And so instead of getting into the reality and facing it, I'm going to go into denial, or I'm going to go into deceiving myself. Avoidance is a tactic where I am deceiving me and I'm deceiving you. So avoidance, what is that? It is sidestepping, it is delaying, it's running away from, it's keeping my responsibility over here and then me over here. So I am avoiding my responsibility. Mm-hmm. I'm not being honest with myself. I am evading and I am procrastinating. And today we are starting with our very first.
So let me
video around
tactics. And I actually wanted to turn the volume off, but okay. Let me talk about avoidance and delaying. And I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or anything like that. I don't coach, but what I'm just talking about here is from a practical standpoint. Sure, all of those things can be a part of avoidance. The only problem I think with what they're talking about is they're only picking one side of it. It's like, let me tell you why backing away and avoiding is a bad thing. But what we aren't going to talk about is why backing away and avoiding might be a good thing. And so I want to sort of bring that up for just a moment as we're thinking about, how this would apply in real life. Like sometimes you just need some time to process things. And that may mean I need to get away. I need to think about it. I don't want to deal with it right now because maybe there's some things I don't understand and I need to go through and process it myself. So I wish this whole piece right here was a balanced view instead of a very one-sided view. So now let's talk about how that might apply to the legal charges that she's facing. So more than likely, her attorney has told her, and hopefully she's following this, not to get out here and make any statements about the charges that she's facing, the disciplinary tactics that she used, the coaching business that she had with Jody, what went on in her personal life with Kevin, or the 6 children. If she's being a good client, she is not opening her mouth about any of that. And so here she's facing something. And according to, her, these might be this might fall under avoidance. Okay, you aren't responding, you aren't taking ownership, you haven't jumped right out here and said, I'm going to plead guilty because what I did was wrong. And so it's not necessarily a delaying tactic. It's part of the procedural, it's part of the process. When you have an attorney and you have a client and somebody's facing something, you want to make sure that that client gets his or her day in court and has an opportunity to have a good response to whatever the charges are that they're facing. So is this legal process now avoidance? Is this bad? Is this delaying bad? And that's why I have some concerns about them only presenting one side, because it makes it sound like, well, hey, okay, I'm going to use the process like everybody does, and I'm going to delay responding. I'm going to delay taking responsibility for the actions that I took with my children. And I'm not going to speak up now because there's a legal process here in place, and I'm being advised to follow that legal process. So is that avoidance? Is she engaging in avoidance here based on the fact that she's not taking responsibility right now? So again, there are some questions around, how they come up with these concepts that they're teaching as coaches and putting out there for everyone else. But to the extent that what they're talking about actually applies in the real world, I think they're presenting a very one-sided view, and that there are some really good reasons why you may need to engage in avoidance or denial or sidestepping. And the situation that both of them are in right now, going through the legal process, is one example of that. And so what would you tell a client? So if a client came to them and said, hey, I want you to coach me, but I've got this proceeding going on, I mean, would you tell that client, well, you're engaging in an avoidance by not stepping out there and taking responsibility for it, by not saying, hey, this is the truth, it happened, I'm being charged with it, the facts are all there, and that I'm engaging in deception or distortion because I haven't said I'm going to plead guilty to that truth. I mean, these are I'm not making this stuff up. These are their theories that they have. And I'm just saying they have them, but I don't see them applying them to the situation that they're facing, which makes you wonder, why are you only presenting this sort of one-sided view about how people really live? Okay. And I'm sure a lot of you would have a lot of comments about why they are doing that. But all right, let's see if we can get to the next one in this series, which is black and white.
Black and white thinking uses omission because the person who's wanting to deceive you doesn't want you to see the whole picture. So I've seen this before, and I'm sure you have, where you tell a small child, hey, it's time for bed. Go get on your pajamas, go turn out your lights, and hop into bed. And then the reaction comes with crying and I want a drink and come read me another bedtime story and I want to say my prayers again. And you hold a boundary and you say, no, you've had a drink. No, I've said prayers with you. No, you've had 3 stories already. No more attention. You get to bed. And now I'm turning out the light. Now here comes the black and white thinking. You're so mean. Either you read me a bedtime story,
or that means
you're being mean.
Okay, so I was wondering where she was going with this. I was trying to understand. And so what they have here is black and white thinking is the erroneous thinking pattern of either or, right or wrong, good or bad. Black or white thinking lacks personal responsibility and therefore creates a stuck position. For example, if I don't get offered this job, then I'll never make it. If I find out you're lying, then I'll never trust you again. I didn't feel accepted, so I'm never visiting again. Either you give me what I want or I'm leaving. All is lost. I'll never. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm always right. Black and white thinking is an exasperated perspective of all or nothing. Okay. I'm thinking about how does that get applied? Okay, so let's see what else.
You're expecting too much of me. Think of how many teenagers today use this black and white thinking. Either you affirm me or I'm going to kill myself. That is a
Okay, so I can really, think back to some of the situations, some of the disciplinary tactics that she took with her kids. Withholding food. I'm going to teach you either you fix it or you starve. I mean, that's basically what she engaged in with her child, right? Um, the child forgot the lunch, and so she wasn't going to bring lunch to the school for the child. That way the child learns, either you fix it yourself or you don't get to eat. I, it, help me, because that sounds a little bit like some black and white thinking there. Again, it's not to say that there's not a place for this. Again, this is not me. I didn't make this up. They're saying this, okay? Because surely there is a way to talk about what you do and the fact that there are consequences. And she said that was what she was trying to teach. These actions have certain consequences, and I want to teach that actions have consequences. My question though is, you know, that is a little bit of black and white thinking. And we usually do engage in some of that. But it sounds like here, again, they're engaging in this sort of black and white. If you engage in that, then you're wrong. It'd be nice to just think about these things being on a continuum. In some cases, it's appropriate to use, in some cases, not. Way here in the middle on the bell curve, it's all over the place. Okay. I don't know. I don't know where they come
The
up with a
form
lot
of
of this.
black and white thinking. It's a thinking trap
It's a
for
thinking trap
the teenager
for the teenager.
and for the parent.
And
And for the
anyone
parent.
else who doesn't understand truth.
Let me stop on that one. I don't even want to go to the courtroom thing on that one. Let's go to blaming. Let's go to blaming.
Distortion is always easier. Go down the slide versus climb up the slide. Down the slide is easier.
Mhm.
It's easier to lie. It's easier to hide. It's easier to go into deception. It's easier.
Turn that off. All right. Okay. So yeah, I'm not sure where else they were going with that. Blaming, I guess, is just blaming other people. I don't know. So it sounds like they've got a number of that they put this coaching business together around this whole, these tactics of deception, distortion. I mean, they've come up with a plan and a program that you can follow. And this is sort of what they're selling, right? This is sort of what they're selling. I don't know. Again, we'll see how this flies when they're actually in the courtroom and they have to talk about this then, or she doesn't. Or do you even apply this to your own life? Some of these things that you have talked about, especially the truth and the compliance piece. I think those are the two that I'm not understanding how you're going to take these ideas that you've sort of been coaching and preaching about and apply them to the legal circumstances that you're in now. I don't know. Make it make sense for me, because right now it is not. So I hope this helps you understand a little bit more. How are they going to use these principles to get out from under these charges that they're facing? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and peace.